It's a product instructional video for the new Vision Line Centipede AA diesel set. These locomotives are available in the Pennsylvania 5-stripe AA set, Pennsylvania single stripe AA set, Union Pacific AA set, and finally the Baldwin Demonstrator AA set. In the package you will receive the instruction manual for loading the engine memory module, the instruction manual for the AA set, a separate instruction manual for installing the smaller diaphragms on the rear of the locomotives. These smaller diaphragms are included in the package because during testing we found that as going through S-curves, it is possible for the diaphragms on the locomotive out of the box for them to hit and derail the locomotive. So if you're using S-curves, putting these locomotives through them, you'll want to make sure you install the shorter diaphragms. Each locomotive has a smoke fluid pipette and funnel, as well as 2 engine memory modules, one for each road name and road number in the set. And each locomotive features 4 replacement traction tires for a total of 8 replacement tires in the AA set. It is interesting to note that on the locomotive memory modules, you only need to install or load 1 module for the AA set because you assign both locomotives the same ID number, which we'll cover when we get into operations. These Vision Line Centipede AA locomotives feature die-cast shell, die-cast trucks, die-cast side frames, die-cast pilot, a stamped metal frame, rotating roof fans on the roof of both locomotives, directional lighting, a coil coupler on the front of both locomotives. Each engine has 2 fan-driven smoke units. The lead A unit is equipped with Legacy Rail Sounds that has the entire sound package in it, and the trailing A unit comes with a stereo-like sound system that, when used in conjunction as an AA set, provides a stereo-like sound. The primary horn being in the lead A, as well as a lower echoing type horn in the trailing A. The back of the locomotives feature a fixed coupler for use in the AA configuration. Now on our Centipede A unit, each locomotive is equipped with a set of switches that can be accessed by removing the rear switch access panel. It is keyed, it will only go on one way, and it's held in by magnets. You want to make sure that you leave this hatch alone, as this hatch serves as part of the antenna system for the locomotive. Inside we have our 3 or 4 switches along with our volume pot. These switches are as follows. The first switch closest to the center of the locomotive is the program run switch. Place the switch in program to either assign the ID number if you're using command or legacy. If you're a conventional operator, the program position is is the E-unit lockout that will keep the locomotive going one direction at all times. The run position is used for operating the locomotive, and for conventional operators will allow you to attain all 3 directional states. The next switch is the Odyssey 2 speed control. In the ODY position, Odyssey 2 is enabled. In the no ODY, Odyssey 2 is disabled. The next switch we have is the front smoke unit on-off switch. In the SMK position, the smoke is on. In the no SMK position, smoke is off. The last switch we have is the rear smoke unit. In the SMK position, the rear smoke is on. In the no SMK position, the rear smoke is off. Finally, we have the manual volume potentiometer, or volume pot. This will allow you to control the overall sounds of the locomotive in a conventional environment. If you're using legacy or command, you can control the volume from the remote and leave the volume pot set at high. Before we get our Centipede AA set on the track, we need to first tell our legacy remote everything about the locomotive. As we mentioned in the intro, the Vision Line Centipede AA set, it comes with two modules, one for each locomotive. Because you assigned both the powered and the non-powered A unit the same ID number, you can technically only load one memory module. So you want to make sure you use the memory module for the lead A unit. In this case, of the Pennsylvania 5-stripe, the lead A unit is cab number 5833. So we're going to take the orange memory module for Pennsylvania Centipede 5833 and load it into the top of our legacy cab with the silver circle L facing up. Now what we're going to do is address engine 33. We're going to press the info key in the upper right hand corner and then the button under load. It's going to tell us it's a Pennsylvania 34678 Centipede, number 5833. Load engine data. We're going to press yes. The engine data is loaded. We can remove the module. Take just a moment and show you what this has done for us. For starters, it's already assigned our name. By pressing the scroll button, we can see it's set the type to diesel. Scroll again is set the control to legacy mode. Scroll again has set the sounds to legacy rail sounds. To exit this menu, we simply press the info key. Cab number appears momentarily. Pennsylvania Centipede AA scrolls across the top. So now, what this has done for us. By pressing the aux 1 key, we get volume up, crew talk, RPMs up, volume down. The black circle is shut down. When I turn the throttle and get the train moving, that changes to a black triangle. That's emergency stop. We have RPMs down, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on, engine reset, Rule 17 lighting on, and Rule 17 lighting off. By pressing the speed bar, we have our 6 preset railroad speeds, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on, the bar graph that directly represents the labor of the locomotive. The 1 inside the box represents roll speed, the very first speed step the locomotive will attain. Effects up. As I press this, you'll see that it says labor increase on the top of the cab. The bar graph goes up. Effects down, it says labor decrease, and the bar graph drops as well. To get out of this screen, we can either press scroll or speed or press the aux 1 key. When we address engine 33, 5833 appears momentarily. We have the startup button in the lower left hand corner, speed limit button, which allows us to set the maximum speed of the locomotive, and the cab light on off button, which will control the cab light in either locomotive. Okay, let's get our locomotive oiled and get it on the track. As you can see, the underside of our Centipede is where the locomotive gets its name. There were a total of 8 driven axles on each Centipede A unit. Before we put this locomotive on the track, we want to make sure that we properly lubricate these trucks and collectors to prevent any unwanted squealing or squeaking when the locomotive is being operated. To do this, we're going to use our oil bottle with our needle applicator. What we want to do is place a small drop of oil on the axles where they go through the bearings in the truck blocks. Just a small drop is all that's necessary on each axle where it goes through each bearing. Once you have the oil on the axle, we encourage you to work it in with your fingers. This will help lubricate those bearings in that axle and prevent any unwanted squealing. Next, we want to do the same thing to each of the 4 axles on the power truck. Both sides, between the gear and the bearing, and the wheel and the bearing on each side. Repeat the steps for each axle on the rear truck as well as the front truck, the trailing truck, and the pilot truck. You also want to put a small drop of oil on the axle for the collector and work that in with your finger. This will prevent the collector from making any type of squealing sounds that you really don't want to hear when you're operating this type of locomotive. And repeat the process for the other two collectors on the opposite truck. Once this is done, we're ready to get the locomotive on the track and put some power to it. Now, before we actually get our locomotive operating, we need to make sure that we assign the proper ID number to the locomotive. Now, we've already told our legacy remote that under engine ID number 33 is this Vision Line Centipede AA set. As we mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you assign both A units the same ID number. So even though the trailing A unit is 5821, we're going to assign it as engine 33. Due to the limitations of the camera and the enormous size of these locomotives, unfortunately I can't get both units in the photo at the same time. So what we're going to do is go ahead and assign the lead A unit, engine 33, first. To do this, we remove the switch cover, place the program run switch in the program position, apply power. Now you'll notice when the power is applied, all that comes on are the number board lights. No cab light, no headlight, no marker lights, no sounds, nothing. Just the number board lights. So using our legacy remote, we're going to press engine 33 and the set button. The horn confirms that it took the command. So now we can place the program run switch back in the run position. We also want to check our switches to make sure that Odyssey is on, and the front and rear smoke unit switches are in the SMK position, which they are. Replace the hatch. Notice the hatch only goes on in one direction. Now we're going to go ahead and take this off the track and assign the trailing A unit as engine 33. These are some heavy locomotives. Okay, go ahead and reapply track power. You'll notice again, only the number board lamps are on. When you first power up, take the hatch off the cover, place the program run switch in the program position, and once again, I'll be using our legacy remote, engine 33 and the set button. Very faint horn to confirm that it took the command. We can now place the program run switch back in the run position. Want to make sure that our Odyssey on-off switch is in the ODY position, and that both the front and rear smoke units are on. Now you will notice that after we program this engine 33, that the front headlight, or in this instance, the front headlight on the trailing unit, so the rear headlight is off, and the marker lights on the front of the locomotive are on. This is because out of the box, the trailing A unit is set up to use the same ID number as the powered A unit, or the lead A unit, so that the lead A unit front headlight is on and forward, and the trailing A unit's rear headlight is off and forward. Even though there's two memory modules, we're only going to use one because we're using the same ID number for both locomotives. Also worthy of mention, the front coil coupler on the trailing A unit is activated by using the R coupler button on the remote. So let's go ahead and swap these around so that you can hear the sounds that the trailer or the lead Centipede A unit makes. Okay, one more thing we want to do before we actually get the locomotive running is we want to make sure that we add smoke fluid to both smoke units on each unit. So to do this, we're going to use our smoke fluid funnel and place that in the hole for the smoke unit. Using our pipette and some Lionel premium smoke fluid, we're going to fill the funnel or the pipette about 3/4 of the way from the tip to the first line and add smoke fluid. A couple puffs of air to make sure we break any meniscus that may be there. And we want to do the same thing on the rear smoke unit. Once again, about 3/4 of the way from the tip to the first line. Couple puffs of air. Remove the funnel. And now we're ready to get our locomotive running. So we'll apply power. Once again, only the number boards are illuminated at initial power up. Using our legacy remote, I'll go ahead and use the icon in the lower left hand corner of the touchpad so you can hear the startup dialog.
NC 5833, do you copy? Pennsylvania Railroad 5833, copy that, over. Okay, start her up. Stand by for track orders. NC 5833, start her up. Out.
Now with both locomotives on the track, that sound really happens in stereo and it's really quite impressive. I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume up on the sound system, just one more notch. It is important to note that there are two separate volume levels with these Centipedes. There are the background sounds, which are the prime mover, tower comm, crew talk, squealing brake sounds that can be controlled independently of the horn and bell. And then there is the all-around sound system, which includes the horn and bell, which can be controlled separately as well. To toggle between the two, to get the background sounds down, you press the aux1 or the straight arrow key first, and then the volume down icon, you press and hold, and the prime mover sounds fade away, but both the horn and the bell are still at regular volume. To bring the background sounds back up, once again, we hit aux1 or the straight arrow key and press and hold the volume up icon on the touchpad, and the background sounds come up. Now, to control the global sound volume, you simply press the horn one time, and then you press either the volume down or the volume up key on the touchpad. This will control the global sounds. I'm going to go ahead and take the sounds all the way up. You hear that bell ring? That tells me that I'm using the volume control for the global sound system. Now you can hear the volume of the horn. Again, all I did was hit the horn. Now I'm going to press the volume down. That bell signifies each time I come down. Now you can hear the volume of the horn. Press it again. And ultimately, each time I can take it down to nothing. I'm blowing the horn now and I have no sounds. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the sounds back up. All of this information is in the product instruction manual, something you should be aware of. Okay, so this is the lead A unit. So the front headlight comes on first. The number boards are always illuminated and the marker lights are off. Now on the trailing A unit, the marker lights will be on because the trailing A unit is facing the opposite direction. So just go through the single note horn for you. The bell. I'm going to go ahead and turn the smoke units on to high. The roof fans on the top of the locomotives will begin spinning once you address the locomotive and start talking to it, sending it commands. We're going to go ahead and get the locomotive moving. You'll notice that Rule 17 lighting is now on. The front headlight is dim while it's at idle and the cab light is on. Once I start moving, the cab light will go out and the front headlight will get brighter. Also, the speed of the fans for the smoke units increase in speed, so I get more diesel exhaust when the locomotive is moving as opposed to sitting still. I want to go ahead and run through the 8 levels of RPM so you can hear what they sound like. I'm just going to do this manually. Now the higher the RPMs go, the faster the roof fans spin. And that right there is notch 8. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring it down manually. Here we are back at idle. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and stop the train by applying the brakes, and you'll notice the volume of the smoke will also decrease. Now as it sits at idle, those smoke unit fan motors will slow down. The amount of exhaust that comes out of it will lessen as well. Go ahead and hit direction. At this point, the headlight on the trailing A unit has come on and the marker lights have gone off. The headlight on the lead A unit has gone off and the marker lights have come on. Like I said earlier, the locomotive is equipped with 2 coil couplers, one at the front of each A unit. The F coupler button will open the coupler on the lead A unit, and the R coupler button will open the coupler on the front of the trailing A unit. Now you'll notice, you may have heard me hit the button on the remote, you didn't hear a sound. That's because that coupler sound comes out of the sound system in the trailing A unit. Go ahead and play the tower comm for you.
Pennsylvania Railroad 5833. Hold for track orders. Over. Yes, sir. Pennsylvania Railroad 5833. Holding for a clear track. Out. NC 5833 here. Can I get a clear signal? Over. Roger that. Take the green. Over. Thank you, sir. We have that green light. NC 5833. Cleared outbound. Out.
Now, that's just an example of the tower comm and crew talk. There are different dialogues depending upon whether the icons on the touchpad are shaded or not shaded. These Vision Line Centipedes are also equipped with what's known as sequence control. Sequence control is entered into by pressing and holding the aux1 or the straight arrow key on the cab for 3 seconds. It signifies that it goes into sequence control by 2 bells and a short blast of the horn. I'm going to press aux1 now. So the 2 bells and the horn tell us that it's entered sequence control. This is a set of sound dialogues that all occur based off of throttle response only. So I'm going to go ahead and go to speed step 1. All of these sound dialogues are all occurring on their own. I'm not triggering any of them. I'm at speed step 1, which the locomotive is actually not moving. You'll notice that the cab light is still on and the front headlight is still dim. I'm sorry, we're in reverse. Go ahead and change direction. Go ahead and do that again. I'm going to go to roll speed. First speed step. Get my 2 horn blasts. Now I'm going to go to speed step 2, at which point my locomotive will start moving. My bell turns on automatically.
5833 here. On the move. Over. Roger that. Now good run. Out.
My crew talk dialogue goes off on its own. The bell will stay on until I crest speed step 23. I still have manual control of everything, so if I want to blow the horn or turn the bell off, I can. Let's go ahead and get the engine up over speed step 23 so the bell turns off. There we are at speed step 24. Now as I make any sudden changes to the throttle, it'll be echoed by a sound dialogue in the locomotive. So what I'm going to do now is just give it a quick increase on the throttle. So I get the horn blast. I'm going to do it one more time. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a quick throttle down. You'll hear the dialogue I get out of that.
Benzene 5833 here. Engine is at slow speed. 5833 out.
Now, as we slow the locomotive down and pass speed step 24 into 23, our bell will turn on. And as we slow the locomotive down, the bell will stay on until we come to a complete stop. Or we reach speed step 1, at which point the locomotive will stop anyway because we're in sequence control. And I can go one more notch to a complete stop.
Engine's at a full stop. I'll let you know when we're underway. Out.
Yeah, I just said that, thanks. To exit sequence control, you simply press the aux1 or straight arrow key and the R icon on the touchpad or 0 on a cab 1. The horn tells us that we have left sequence control. You can also fill the fuel in this locomotive by pressing and holding that engine reset key on the touchpad or the 0 button on the cab 1 remote. So now I'm going to go ahead and press and hold the reset key. As long as I hold the reset key down, I'll have the sound of the fuel filling. Once I let off of the reset key, I'll get this dialogue.
Dispatcher, I got a full tank of fuel. Over. Acknowledged. Out.
And now finally, I'm going to go ahead and play the shutdown sequence, which is the number 5 position on a cab 1, or the black round circle in the center of the touchpad.
We're going to be 5833 out.
And so now the locomotive's at a complete shutdown. Once again, where it was when track power was initially applied. That is, smoke, fans, and sounds are off, and only the number boards are illuminated. To get our locomotive to start up again, I simply address the locomotive and press the power button in the lower left-hand corner. These Centipede AA units have already begun shipping to customers. They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of heavy power. Both A units are powered for a total of 4 motors across the AA set. They are die-cast shells. They are severe freight pulling locomotives. They have a lot of power and a lot of traction. And they're at your dealer now. Also important to note is that these are Vision Line locomotives. As such, they have a registration number that's located right underneath the front truck on the frame of the locomotive. You want to make sure that you visit Lionel.com and specifically Vision Locomotive Registration under the Customer Services tab, and be sure to register your locomotive VIN number or product number with your name and address, which will help us track the ownership of the locomotive and also track any service history that locomotive may or may not have. Thank you.